Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this handsome beast is the Mercedes X-Class. When you think of a pickup truck, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably some sort of workhorse that's working either on a farm or at a construction site, and more than likely has a Mitsubishi, Toyota or Isuzu badge on the front. Definitely not a three-pointed star. But in 2018, Mercedes decided to join the segment with this, the X-Class, and it's technically the brand's second pickup truck into the segment if you count the G-Wagon 6x6. Although that would be quite silly because it's incredibly exclusive and costs quite a bit of money as well. So we could say, in terms of keeping your feet realistically on the ground, this is Mercedes' first real foray into the pickup segment. And I've had this X-Class for a week and I'm going to let you know what it's all about. Now, underneath the X-Class is actually based on the Nissan Navara. It's actually cheaper doing it this way than building a pickup from the ground up. Now, Mercedes have done a lot more than just stick a three-pointed star on the front of a Navara. There's a lot of work that's gone on underneath. And when it comes to styling, well, I think this definitely looks like a Mercedes pickup truck. It's exactly how we would have envisioned it. And what I like as well is that it has all those Mercedes qualities. I mean, it looks like a Mercedes SUV, but also looks surprisingly rugged at the same time, whilst maintaining that air of sophistication about it. And even in this diamond silver colour, which is a Mercedes colour, it actually works. It just suits the X-Class really well. And what I love about it is that it still has a huge amount of presence about it. I think every time you see an X-Class, you'll definitely give it a second look, especially if you didn't know the X-Class existed. But what I particularly like with this X-Class is the hardtop on the load area. It gives the X-Class a bit of a ute look to it, which I think utes are pretty much the coolest cars on the planet, even though they don't sell them here in the UK. But when it comes to styling, I think Mercedes have really hit the nail on the head with the X-Class. And that's enough of the outside of this one. Let's go have a little look at the inside. Sat in the front of the X-Class, it feels very much like a pickup truck, but not quite as you know it. You can clearly see the Mercedes influence in here. Now, firstly, getting in and out of the X-Class might be a bit tricky for some, because there's actually no grab handle here on the A-pillar, nor on the top of the door frame, and that is quite surprising for a pickup truck. They are, however, featured on the passenger side. So if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues, getting in and out of this X-Class might be a bit trickier than other pickup trucks. So that's just something to be aware of. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that the seats themselves are very comfortable. They hold a big bear like me in place. And on this power trim, both the driver and front passenger seats are electrically adjustable, and they are heated as well. And I do love the leather material used on these seats. It does feel of a very good quality. So there's plenty of adjustment in the seat themselves, but the actual steering wheel, disappointingly, only has rake adjustment, but not reach. So you can't quite get the perfect driving position. And the other thing I've noticed as well is if I'm sat as low as I can be, which this seat actually is set, and the steering wheel as high as it can be, my eye line actually doesn't show the indicator lights when they're kind of going off. So if I'm indicating left as I'm sat here, I can't see the light going if I had the indicator going. So again, it's just something to be aware of if you are looking at the X-Class, but just kind of go to a dealership, have a sit down, and just make sure you can get comfortable in one. And then next comes interior quality, which is actually really good. We've got soft touch plastics here on top of the dash and on top of the doors, and also on the door panel here, so you can rest your arm whilst on a longer journey. Yes, the rest of the cabin has got hard, scratchy plastics, but they feel of a very good quality and should stand the test of time. And then what I do like as well is that we've got the infotainment system set high up on the dash, and we've got the traditional Mercedes vents, and there's actually 4 of them here on the center console. So on a hot day like today, it is very easy to get cool in the X-Class. Cubby spaces are actually really good as well. We've got some really huge door bins. You can get a huge bottle of drink in there, and although they're not lined with any fabric, so any loose items will rattle around all over the place, they are just really huge, so you can get a lot of stuff in there. Then there's nothing on the front side of the center console, but here behind the infotainment system we have got a couple of cup holders. One of them's pretty deep and you can put a small bottle of drink in there, and the other one, which is quite shallow, is rubber lined, but you could put, say, a coffee cup in there and it actually won't budge. It will stay there quite well. And then just behind there, we have got the armrest, and underneath there we have got 2 USB inputs, got an SD card input as well as an additional 12-volt socket, because the first 12-volt socket is here on the center console. And then we have got the glove box, which is of a decent size, and it is lined with fabric, so any loose items won't make any noises in there. So that's a nice thing to come across. And then also on the center console, just below the air vents, we have got a CD player. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. We've got dual zone climate control just in front of the gear stick, and just below there as well, we've got all your kind of 4x4 and gearbox options in terms of going off-road, so high range, low range, locking differential, as well as hill descent control. So everything's kind of logically set out for a pickup truck. And then behind the gear lever, we have got a Mercedes style infotainment system, and this is probably the only one you're going to come across in the pickup segment. So it is nice and intuitive to use. You just got the rotary dial there, and you can go through things such as media, navigation, and car settings, etc. You have got some shortcut buttons here as well, just under the CD player, as well as the hazard light button. But it is nice and intuitive to use, and although I've not used a system like this before, because I've not yet reviewed a Mercedes or a BMW, it is nice and intuitive and doesn't take too long to get used to. Also on the left hand side, you have got your dynamic button, so this changes your driver modes. So you have things like Eco, Sport, yes, Sport on the X-Class, as well as individual or manual and off-road. You've also got things like your start, stop, on, off button, and also the volume control is here as well. As you can see, I've just turned that on. There we go, that can disappear. And we've also got a button there to turn off your traction control. And then just on the right hand side under the vent here, we've got automatic lights, and we've also got some quite nice features like a 360-degree camera. We've also got front and rear parking sensors and lane departure warning. So in terms of kit, the X-Class is pretty well kitted out. Sorry, there's a horsefly just kind of bothering me a bit. But yeah, sat in front of the X-Class. I mean, it's not going to move the segment forward, but it has everything that you would like in here, and the aero quality has taken a nice step forward for the pickup segment. But I think that's enough of looking at the front of the X-Class. Let's have a little look at the back. Sat in the back of the X-Class, it's actually really good back here. Now that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a good amount of knee room, and I have got a little bit of headroom if I do slouch a little bit, but if I sit very much upright, yes, it is touching the ceiling. You could easily now get 4 adults sat in the X-Class. You could even get a 5th for short journeys, because there's hardly any transmission hump coming in through the floor, so it's almost completely flat, which is a pleasant surprise in the pickup segment. Also, getting in and out of the back seats is nice and easy, because you have got a grab handle here as well as one on top of the door frame. And when it comes to cubby spaces, the door pockets are of a huge size, just like the front, so you can get a big bottle of drink in there. And again, they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. And then we have got your airplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. And that's pretty much it in terms of cubby space. We have got a couple of air vents here, so you can keep yourself nice and cool at the back. And we have got a 12-volt socket. Just a shame we haven't got any USB inputs back here, or any additional cup holders like on a Isuzu D-Max. But what I love as well is you have got a little window here, which the driver can open and shut via a little button next to the steering wheel. Okay, I wanted to save that one and not tell you whilst I was sat there, but I think it's a brilliant feature. Just allows a little bit of additional air into the cabin, especially on a hot day like today. But when it does come to additional cubby spaces and features, if you haven't got any passengers here, is that you can get this base hooked up like on the Isuzu D-Max. So you get the base to kind of stay up here, and you can put some large bulky items here behind the front driver and passenger seat, and there are a couple of little additional storage spaces under the floor. So that is a nice unique feature. But I am pleasantly surprised by the amount of room here in this X-Class, and what's even better is that it's actually really comfortable in here when you are on the move. But that's enough of the back of the Mercedes X-Class. Let's have a little look at that load area. As always, when I have a pickup, I'm going to open the load bay for dramatic effects. But one thing I will let you know about is that the actual tailgate isn't damped, unlike something like an Isuzu D-Max, so that is a little bit disappointing. But as you can see, you've got a vast load bay area and it is incredibly versatile. So I have got the hard top cover along with the styling bars, and as I mentioned earlier, it does give the X-Class a bit of a big ute presence about it. And on this particular one, we have got the interior liner to protect from any kind of paint scratches or anything like that if you are loading any large, bulky, heavy items. But as with all pickup trucks, it is hugely customizable in here, and as you can see from the dimensions, it is a vast load bay and very usable. Of course, you can just tailor the X-Class to your very needs. So not only is it a bit of a lifestyle vehicle, but of course it can be the workhorse that you want it to be. But you know what, apart from the tailgate being damped, that's the only real negative I've got back here. You have got a couple of hooks on rails at the back here as well, and there are a few added optional extras. And of course, check in the description down below if you want to know what options have been fitted to this particular X-Class, and I will put their prices on there at the time of recording. But I do think that the X-Class is a perfect workhorse vehicle, just like any other pickup. You can get a Euro pallet in the back there, and then depending on what spec you go for, it tends to be around 1100 kilos thereabouts that you can load on the rear load bay. But that's enough of looking at the tail of the X-Class. Let's take it for a drive. So once you get driving in the X-Class, first impressions are really positive. Now yes, it does feel like a pickup in some respects, especially kind of sitting very high up in the cabin, as well as having that kind of slight vibration and shake coming through the car as you drive over any bumps. But compared to most other pickups that I have driven, this also feels surprisingly car-like. It's comfortable in ways other pickups are not, and we'll go on to that later. Now when it comes to visibility, all round it's generally pretty good. You have got some pretty thick A-pillars at the front here, and sometimes you can find yourself looking around them at junctions, and looking over your shoulder is actually pretty good. There's not the thickest of C-pillars, and because I haven't got a big cabin on the back of the trailer here, it does mean I've got good all-round visibility, so that is a positive. But one thing I will mention in regards to visibility is reflections. Now by that I mean, as I'm sat here driving on a sunny day, there are two reflections that stand out in the cabin. Now the first one is on the wing mirrors, which are huge and they do give off a bit of wind noise. But depending on the light, I can look at them and I can see the chrome surround for the air vent here, and sometimes it can be a bit distracting. The other reflection you'll see is actually on the dash, and that is from, I believe it's a speaker, that kind of honeycomb grill effect on there, and you can see it on the windscreen again in certain lights, and it can be a little bit distracting. I actually thought that the X-Class came with a heated windscreen when I first saw it, and then realised no, it was just the reflection. But first impressions for a pickup truck are really good, and from a Mercedes pickup truck, of course, we were expecting something a little bit special. It is very comfortable, and actually refinement is very good as well, definitely compared to the likes of the Isuzu D-Max. Now newer pickup trucks like the new Mitsubishi L200, and if you want to watch my review of the new L200, click in the top right hand corner, do actually have a better ride than the Isuzu D-Max. They've really improved it in that regard, but it still feels very much like a pickup. However, this X-Class, it has got some really nice car qualities to it in regards to the ride and handling, and as I said, we'll speak about those in a little bit. But yeah, first impressions of the X-Class, it feels very special for a pickup, definitely. Now when it comes to trim levels in the X-Class range, there are three to choose from. There's the entry-level Progressive, the limited edition Element, and this, the top of the range Power. And in terms of choosing the right spec to go for, or what I would recommend, you have to ask yourself the question, what are you going to use your X-Class for? Now, if you're going to use it as a workhorse and you're going to have it down the farm or at the, at the construction site, then I would definitely recommend the Progressive, because it's got a little bit more of a rugged look to it, and I have a feeling you won't mind not spending as much as the Power or the Element if you get any bumps or scratches on it. If you're looking for something with a bit of exclusivity, then of course go for the Element. But if you're after a lifestyle pickup truck, then definitely the Power is the one to go for. And the main reason being is it feels a little bit more special. You can customize it as well, and you also get the glorious engine that's underneath. Engine choices in the X-Class range, we've technically got 2 to choose from, but you have got 3 power outputs. So the entry-level engine is a 2.3 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, and you can have that as either the 220D or the 250D, which has got a bit more power and gives you the choice of an automatic or a 6-speed manual. The lower powered diesel has actually only got a 6-speed manual as a choice in terms of a gearbox. Then you've got the more powerful 3-litre V6 turbocharged diesel engine, which you can only get on the Power trim, and that's got 255 brake horsepower, but the torque figure is a mind-whopping 550 Newton meters. So this big 2+ ton truck will get from 0 to 62 in around 7.9 seconds. So you can worry some of those young lads there driving about in their hot hatch. You can definitely give them a bit of a scare. But what that also means is that this X-Class is perfect for going off-road, because you've got that immense amount of torque to help you out, and especially as well as it's 4-wheel drive. I actually really personally love this engine. I think it's incredibly smooth going through the 7-speed G-tronic gearbox, which kind of tells me it's a Mercedes gearbox and not something you would find in the Nissan Navara. It actually feels very car-like in that regard. It goes through the gears nice and smoothly. Yes, there's a little bit of hesitation when you put your foot down and launching from a standstill, but let's be honest, most pickups when they're automatics are like that anyway. But as you're just driving along, it feels really lovely. And what I love as well is that Mercedes have clearly looked at sound isolation, because although yes, you can hear the diesel grumble come into the cabin, it's not half as bad as something like a Isuzu D-Max, which can sound quite agricultural. And if I would say kind of, if you got the money, then go for the V6. But again, if you're after a pickup that's going to be a workhorse, then go for one of the 4-cylinder diesels. They'll be definitely right at home for you. Of course, this being a big rugged V6 diesel, economy is not really going to win any awards. So Mercedes claim that I should be able to get around about 35 mpg out of this V6 turbo diesel, but I'm going to be honest, I have struggled to hit 30. The best I got was around 29.5 mpg, and you can see a little picture of here to show you that I actually could achieve it. But the issue is I had to drive like such an old man in order to accomplish it. Any place that I was driving at the national speed limit, I really took my time to get there. So if you are one that's looking for a frugal engine, then this is definitely not the engine for you. You will be dipping into your pocket on more than a few occasions per month in order to top her up. But then again, if you can afford the X-Class with the Power trim and the V6 turbo diesel, you're not going to be too worried about fuel costs. So what's the ride and handling like in the X-Class? Well, having recently driven the new Mitsubishi L200, I thought that was a huge step up in terms of pickup trucks driving a lot more and feeling a lot more like big SUVs. But this X-Class takes it to a whole new level. Excuse me as I go around that roundabout and have things slide about. But what I love is that it is incredibly comfortable. Now, the Navara at the back tends to have leaf springs, and this has got coil springs. And this brings me on to one of the highlights in the X-Class, which is all-round comfort with the ride. So you can go over speed bumps and sleeping policemen, and as you go over them, it tends to be the front suspension is absolutely fine, it's very comfortable, but the rear suspension, especially if your pickup truck is unladen, can be quite stiff and rigid. And if you've got any passengers sat in the back, well, they can tend to kind of have their spine get a bit of a shattering. But in this, it's the complete opposite. It is very wafty, it's very comfortable, and when it's unladen, it still feels not completely SUV-like. Of course, there is that little pickup shake you get coming throughout the cabin, but I have had passengers sat in this X-Class all round, and they've just said it's been incredibly comfortable throughout. And I've been fortunate enough to have the same passengers who were in the L200, and they thought that was a big improvement of something like an Isuzu D-Max. So essentially, the more money you pay, the more comfortable it's going to be. And that also comes on to now the next thing, which is handling. So firstly, the steering wheel, which is leather wrapped, of course, feels really nice in your hand. And going into a number of corners, yes, there's a little bit of lean, there's a little bit of roll, but it's not enough to make you feel motion sickness or seasick. And unlike other pickups I've driven in the past, you don't feel like the X-Class is going to let go and kind of understeer into the trees or, you know, off the road. It does feel very composed. And if you have it in sport mode, then everything gets a little bit firmed up. As I said earlier, yes, this has a sport mode, and it just actually feels like a very fun pickup truck to drive, especially with the V6 engine. The problem is when you do kind of scare a hot hatch driver in his little Honda Civic Type R, or perhaps a Golf GTD, which you can keep up with, you do find that the fuel gauge starts to trickle down towards empty. So again, just be aware of that economy. But overall, ride, handling and refinement levels in the X-Class are really good. I am hugely impressed. So when it comes to niggles in the X-Class, what have I experienced? Well, this is kind of a weird one because I've not really experienced any major niggles. Now, I've already mentioned some, so the fact that the driving position, I can't get the seat any lower. We are missing a grab handle on the A-pillar and above the door. But other than that, it's more a case of what the X-Class is lacking from the pickup segment, as well as what you would expect from a Mercedes pickup. So only having 2 cup holders is just terrible for a pickup. I mean, you got to imagine the people that are going to be driving this. They're going to be taking this down to the construction site or working on a farm. They're going to have their Sun newspaper. No, not a Sun for a Mercedes driver. They're going to have their Daily Telegraph, you know, strewn upon the dashboard. They're going to have their Starbucks coffee cups all over the shop. They are going to have a lot of stuff in here, but there's not enough cubby spaces, you know, in order to fill their needs. And then there's little things like you would expect kind of blind spot monitoring on the X-Class because it is a Mercedes pickup and they want it to have that car-like feel to it. I mean, it's not a terrible thing to go without because the visibility is really good, but it is one of those things that you possibly would expect. So what are my thoughts on the Mercedes Benz X-Class power trim with the 3-litre turbocharged V6? Well, from a personal perspective, I really love this X-Class. I think it is just an absolute hoot. I love the engine, the refinement and the power. The torque is incredible, and on a couple of occasions you do feel your neck straining as, you know, you accelerate. And I love the fact as well, it has all the capabilities that a pickup should have. The towing capacity is really good. You can get just shy of 1,100 kilos in the back. And of course, depending on what trim you go for, it does tend to change a little bit. But there comes to the journalist side where I have to give you the, you know, the proper review, the unbiased review, which is quite simply, this is a very luxurious, very expensive pickup truck, which doesn't move the game forward. I think if you're after this, you really have to want a Mercedes X-Class. You really want to go for a Mercedes pickup truck. It reminds me, and this, I'm hoping you kind of stick with me on this, it reminds me of the new Honda E electric car. And if you want to watch that, if you know, a bit related to the X-Class, but anyway, if you want to watch that, click up in the top right hand corner for my launch review. But that was a little EV that's over £30,000, and it hasn't got the range and it hasn't got the practicality compared to its rivals. But if you really want a Honda E, you will go and buy a Honda E. Same as with the X-Class. If you really want this pickup, you're going to go out and get it. And I hope you do. I hope if you really want it, don't think about it, go and test drive one. Make sure you're happy with it. Make sure it does everything that you want. because there are things you can do. You can customize it to your heart's content. You can take it to companies like Deranged and they can give it carbon fiber and give it beefier looks and make it look quite menacing. But to be honest, I actually think the X-Class has got a huge amount of presence already, but it's just not enough, I think, to say go for an X-Class over other pickup trucks in the segment. Something like a Volkswagen Amarok V6 would possibly be a better bet financially. And if you're after a lifestyle pickup truck, as I mentioned, you can go for the Ford Ranger Raptor. But they are out there, and if you happen to be a little bit of a badge knob, then of course you're not going to listen to me and you're just going to go for the X-Class, which you're not making a poor choice if you do. It's a brilliant pickup truck and is hugely versatile. It's just a shame that the price couldn't be under that £50,000 bracket, because it would make it even more appealing to buyers and possibly have stopped it from being culled. Never mind, eh? Hey there everybody, and I hope you have enjoyed my review of the Mercedes Benz X-Class pickup truck. As always, please hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. As always, I am on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I always advise you follow me on there for additional content, including live videos and still images. If you have any questions about the X-Class and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. And are you an X-Class owner, and is there anything that I've missed? By all means, put down your comments below. But guys, personally, I really love the X-Class. I love the looks, it's hugely capable and it drives brilliantly. But unfortunately, it's just a hugely expensive car, and you really gotta want one in order to go for it and fork out possibly over £50,000 for one. But I have really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed this review as well, and I will catch you all in the next video. So guys, take care, stay safe, keep your social distancing, and bye-bye.